I just wanted to tell you a little story while I'm working with these green beans and turning them into leather breeches. Way back when, my grandparents, they loved to have a big garden. Everything that they ate was fresh from their garden. They canned, they dried, they sun dried, they preserved many of their foods to have all winter long. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I had so many gourmet quality foods. During the spring, summer, and fall, everything was just absolutely fresh out of the garden. And you could go to my grandparents' table and you could look on the table and you would recognize all the foods. Well, one day the green beans were in season, meaning they had grown to maturity and they needed to be picked. So my grandmother, she said, "Ransom, would you like to go help me gather some green beans?" And I said, yes, because everything with my grandparents, when you went into the garden or you stayed with them for the week, the weekend, the summer, everything was an adventure. My grandmother, my grandfather would take me out into the garden. We would go into the green bean patch. Many times they were planted with corn. And we would gather the green beans, and they always made it seem like an adventure, an event. It was not work. It was actually very fun. I just loved it. She would tell stories about insects that we would find, plants that we would be looking at, stories about green beans and how to prepare them. On that day, we picked a lot of green beans, a lot of green beans. And she filled up several bushel tubs. Now, I was very young. This is a story from my very young childhood. I was not even school age, maybe 4.5, 5 years old at the most. And my grandmother had that big bushel heaped up with beans. And she looked at me and she said, "Now, child, do you feel like you can carry this back to the house?" And I did not want to disappoint my grandmother. I said yes, and I picked that handle up. This was one of the old metal bushels. The handle was a thin like wire. It actually was just slightly thicker than this needle attached to the bushel container. And I picked it up with my little boy hands, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is heavy. This is really heavy. I did not want to disappoint my grandmother. I wanted her to be proud of me. I wanted to show her that I could take that bushel of beans back home. And I struggled with it. I walked through that garden, past the cornfield, down the trail that led to the house. And my hands were absolutely stinging, turning numb, red, where I was holding onto that handle as hard as I could, walking down the path. But I made it. I made it with that bushel of green beans. My grandmother was behind me with another bushel of green beans. And she said, "Wow, I cannot believe you made it with all these green beans." And I really couldn't believe I made it either because they were so heavy. But I felt joy. I was so happy that she was happy. It was just an adventure. Gardening with my grandparents was an absolute adventure. Cooking in the kitchen with them was an adventure. I want you to hang out. Come and enjoy the adventure of cooking with me in the kitchen. I'm Ransom Ryder, and that's just one of my little family stories from the deep south in the Appalachian Mountains.